On today's program, adolescent toothbrushing and sexting. And Al-Qaeda has taken 2 cities in western Iraq. And the Supreme Court, again attempting to ascend to the throne of God. And Obamacare, don't worry. Yes, we can. This is the voice of resistance.
Standing for truth in the 4 corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Just what is this device being used for? Besides talking? How about toothbrushing and adolescent sexting? The Journal of Pediatrics released a study that was done by the Bradley Hasbro Children's Research Center based in Providence, Rhode Island. They're a part of the Rhode Island Hospital. They released a study in which over 20%, more than 1 in 5 children from the ages of 12 to 14 had sent sexually explicit texts or photographs of themselves via their cell phone. Stop and ponder. 12 to 14 years old. Another study released recently showed that fully 25% of teenagers in the state of Texas had sent nude pictures of themselves across their cell phone. Those were 10th and 11th graders. Friend, this device is not a part of our human history. And I own one, all right? So it's not that the device itself is inherently evil, but let me speak to the moms and dads that are out there. There's a reason why we don't let 10 and 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds drive a car or operate heavy machinery. There's a thing called age appropriateness. And since the printing of National Geographic, teenage boys and maybe even some girls have been going to the library and looking at some of the photographs of some of the cultures around the world where perhaps they wear less clothing than in other cultures. So this is not something new, all right? A preoccupation with human sexuality is a part of going into puberty. It just is. The problem is that this device and the television, etc., in the hands of a child that is not being watched by mom and dad, this device opens a portal, paves a road into a world that in turn comes into the child's soul. I have a child right now who is 6 months away from being inside of the age group of this study, 12 to 14 years old. I cannot conceive of allowing him to have his own cell phone. Now, there was another company recently in France that just released an app that you use a wireless toothbrush, costs between $100 and $200, a wireless toothbrush that tells you if you're brushing your teeth properly. Now, where I come from, that used to be the job of a mom and a dad. And so I want to leap past just for a moment the horror of these young children sending nude photographs of themselves or young children involved in trying to seduce other children into sexual activity. Let's leapfrog past that just for a minute and talk about parental neglect. I'm not going to look to cyberspace or to Big Brother to teach my children how to brush their teeth. And I'm also not going to allow my children to carve out for themselves an alternate existence in cyberspace. An existence in cyberspace that could, in fact, come into their behavior. Because what they're seeing in these studies is that whereas a few years ago you had this cyber reality, but you didn't really do it, and then there was your personal life. What they're finding is that the more people are involved in the cyber world with sexting, which is sending texts that are sexually explicit, or sending photographs, that these same kids are in fact involved in sexual behaviors that are dangerous and at times life-threatening. Okay? Which brings us all the way back around to mom and dad. Or if you're in a single parent home, mom. I mean, our culture has taught us, Western civilization has been saying for 50 or 100 years that children are a nuisance. Don't have them. Use birth control, kill your babies if you get pregnant. If you have a baby, put them off into a government school so you can go get a job and enrich your own life. And if they're home and they're bugging you, here, take this, go play a game. Here, take the computer, go watch something. Here, go text with your friends. The problem is that this lack of on-hands involvement from moms and dads is putting children who are not age appropriate for the devices in a place where they're losing their very soul. And they're going to go down a path of behavior that could harm them and cripple them in this life and the next. Moms and dads, go ahead. Teach your kids how to brush their teeth. Don't leave it to a computer device. And take the cell phone away. They don't need one when they're 10, 12, 13, 14 years old. The world existed for thousands of years without these things. And we know that right now, there's a lot of danger associated with this. There's not much danger associated with you teaching your kid how to brush their teeth. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. What is the use of living if it be not to strive for noble causes and to make this muddled world a better place to live after we are gone? Sir Winston Churchill. President Obama and the State Department would have us believe that Al-Qaeda has been decimated. Unfortunately, they got it wrong. Al-Qaeda forces have taken the key cities of Fallujah and Ramadi in Iraq. Over 1,500 American soldiers died in battle to take Fallujah, and now the city has been lost. The Al-Qaeda members there are calling themselves the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. And their mission is what it has always been, to establish an Islamic State under Sharia law. Now let me focus on a few elements here because we have lost an enormous amount of blood and treasure for nation building in Iraq, and we're watching it just be poured down the Islamic drain before our eyes. And of course, Secretary of State John Kerry said, we have no intentions of putting boots on the ground. This is a fight for the Iraqi people. What does that mean? Well, number one, the leadership of Iraq is now calling on the people of the province of Anbar, the people of Fallujah and Ramadi, to rise up against Al-Qaeda. Here's the problem. That province is dominated by Sunni Muslims. This leads to what may be the State Department's secret hope, namely that a civil war inside of that province will take the lives of Al-Qaeda terrorists, that they'll be killed in battle. You see, Iraq is predominantly a Shiite country. The Shiites and the Sunnis, these are both Muslim sects, have been warring with each other in bloody conflicts since one generation after the death of Muhammad in 632. So we're talking nearly 1,400 years of battle between Shiites and Sunnis. In fact, Sunnis hate Shiites so much that when they talk about us, the infidels, they say the only thing worse than one of us infidels is a Shiite Muslim. And the reason is because the Shiites believe that you have to be a blood relative of Muhammad to be the ruler of the Islamic people, and the Sunnis believe, no, you just have to be a good Muslim, a friend who follows Muhammad. And that has led to literally 1,400 years of killing between these two sects. Well, it could be that the State Department is hoping that these people will kill each other off. Here's the problem, friend. Afghanistan. We allowed Al-Qaeda, working with the Taliban, to have bases inside of Afghanistan. In those bases, they trained terrorist fighters and then sent them out around the world to kill Americans and other infidels. We cannot allow the western province of Iraq to be in the hands of Al-Qaeda. We can't. So the only question is how and when we do something to kill them. Now, it could be that our government is willing to wait for 6 or 12 months or 2 or 3 years, or Obama's ready to just wait till he's out of office and let the next president deal with it. But if Al-Qaeda holds this province and they use it as a base of terrorist operations, as Al-Qaeda did with Afghanistan, they're going to train and send terrorists to kill Americans and other infidels. It's going to happen. And at that point, the discussion will percolate among the American populace and other nations as to what are we going to do. The problem we had with both Iraq and Afghanistan is that we went in for nation building. What we should have done was attacks of vengeance. We're going in and we're killing the leaders and we're leaving. We have the bombs. We have smart bombs. We know where these guys are. We could be killing them right now, but we're not going to because of war weariness in the American populace, and Obama doesn't need more egg on his face. And there's one other small problem that's really big. You'll notice that Anbar borders Syria. Sunni terrorists, Al-Qaeda terrorists, are fighting with the Free Syrian Army in the north, killing Christians as they go to try and take Damascus. Well, now they hold a stronghold to the south of Syria, and they can begin to attack from the north and the south to try and bring down the Shiite Ba'ath government of Syria. And guess what? Iran is not simply going to sit back and let that happen. They need that puppet regime in Syria. They need the Shiite stronghold, the base of terrorist operations that is functioning in Syria. So what will Iran do? I don't know. But now we've got a real mess on our hands because Iran is getting closer and closer to being armed with a nuclear weapon. Al-Qaeda has a base just a very close distance to Baghdad and bordering Syria. And we have lost 1,500 men fighting for Fallujah, which those lives are now perhaps lost in vain. The story won't go away. We'll cover it as we come. But know this, whether it's Iraqi Sunni terrorists or Iraqi Shiite terrorists or any other strain of Islamic terrorists from the Middle East, they are bent on one thing: bringing the world under Sharia law and the rule of the dictates of Muhammad. And that means that infidels like you and me are either going to convert, be killed, or be enslaved. I'm not interested in any. I say we have our government go in there as soon as possible or help other people to kill these terrorists. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed, You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is While Supplies Last. James Madison said, "A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people." I have a personal question to ask you. How sick are you of hearing about Obamacare? I'm sick of it, I have, but we have to cover something here, and I've come to a conclusion. We can make this work. Hear me out, okay? Senator Rand Paul, who is a Republican presidential hopeful, I think he went through the motions of putting his son in Obamacare to show just what a debacle the system is. Roll the clip, Lane.
Your opposition to Obamacare has been no secret, but I understand now that the issue has also become personal for you. Is it true that you've actually had trouble signing up for Obamacare and that you're not even sure your family is covered?
At this point, I'm unsure, and the other day I actually tried to get my son signed up through the Kentucky Exchange, you know, that the Democrats have said is so good, and I have here my son's Medicaid card. We didn't try to get him Medicaid. I'm trying to pay for his insurance, but they automatically enrolled him in Medicaid. They wouldn't talk to us because they said they weren't sure he existed. He had to go down to the welfare office, prove his existence. Then the next thing we know, we get a Medicaid card. So really, most of the people in Kentucky are automatically being enrolled in Medicaid. I'm trying to pay for insurance and can't pay for it, and I'm uncertain now whether I'm enrolled in D.C. and or Kentucky, and it's a mess. I keep getting an error code every time I go in. It will not let me edit my policy to try to make sure that my family is covered. So, no, I think it's really, this is an unfolding disaster that I don't think gets better anytime soon.
Okay, so there you have it. He tries to get his son insurance, ends up that his son gets put in Medicaid, and he's not in the system. And there's other reports about 100,000 people that have tried to get into Medicaid, but they can't be found, or they've got their card, but the system shows that they're not in the system yet. And frankly, it's a debacle. I get it. But listen to me. Listen. We can make this work. We can. I want you to think, first of all, the English have a single-payer system. Canada has nationalized health care. The Soviet Union had nationalized health care, and I'm sure they still have something like it in Russia. So it has been done in the last 50 or 100 years. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we can make it work at some level. But the thing that really gives me hope, and what I want you to think about, is this. In the hierarchy of human need, all right, what do you have? First, it's food and water, then shelter, right, and clothing. There are simple things that we all need. This is a hierarchy. And that all comes before health care. When can you think in times past where clothing was a real critical issue and they made it work? Yes, the antebellum South. Slavery. Cotton fields. Cotton is critical, or it used to be critical before polyester and stuff, but it was critical to the development, the manufacture of human clothing. And there was a lot of difficulty getting the cotton out of the fields. And so what did they do? Well, they kidnapped people from Africa and they brought them here and they forced them to breed and to create more slaves. And there were a lot of glitches in the system. A lot of the slaves, when they came over, they rebelled against the ship's crew and they killed them. So then they had to build these berths and they had to chain them up and they had to put them in these boxes. But over time, the slave trade perfected slavery and thereby was able to produce cotton and satisfy a basic human need for clothing. So, if we look at slavery and cotton, there is the template. Because a lot of people have been saying, well, this will never work. Can it work? Are we ever going to make it work? Well, of course you can make it work. If you can make slavery work, you can make just about anything work. All you have to do is have what Obama has, which is an ideological commitment to this agenda and the perseverance to see it through no matter what. All right? And friend, that's exactly what we have going on here. His commitment to healthcare and his commitment to make it work with slavery. I mean, if you were in England, you could say, I have a right to clothing. I need clothing. These slaves are providing a basic human need that I have, and I want it. So the fact that they have to work with the sweat of their brow to provide something for me that I need, well, that's just the way it is, all right? So remember, the essence of slavery is that you work against your will for the benefit of another. And you might be a well-fed slave. You might be one of the house slaves. Get to wear nice clothes, even a powdered wig, all right? You're still a slave, and the slave is providing a much-needed commodity, something that's part of our fundamental needs, the stuff we need for clothing. So, if we could have slaves do it for clothing, why not for health care? Yes, we will persevere under Obama's flag, and we will provide health care no matter who we have to enslave to do it. The only problem is this: I don't want to be a slave on the federal plantation. Do you? James Madison said, "There is no maxim, in my opinion, which is more liable to be misapplied, and which therefore needs more elucidation, than the current, that the interest of the majority is the political standard of right and wrong." Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. Save me, O God, by thy name, and judge me in thy strength. For strangers have risen up against me, and the mighty have sought after my soul, and they have not set God before their eyes. One further note on Obamacare and slavery. President Lincoln, in his second inaugural, said this: "It may seem strange that any men should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces." This is, of course, an allusion to God telling Adam that you're going to work by the sweat of your brow. You're going to earn what you need, work for what you need, with great toil, the sweat of your brow. But the essence of slavery is that you work for the benefit of another against your will. That's the essence of slavery. So when you or I am forced to work and then to take a portion of our money against our will and give it for the needs of someone else, not as an act of charity, but with the government threatening to put us in jail if we won't comply, then that is the essence of slavery. Now, this cuts very close to home for me because I have a child who is very sick right now, and the medical bills will easily approach $1 million. Fortunately, we're being treated at St. Jude Research Hospital, where we will not receive a bill. It's an act of charity. But no one is putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to give money to St. Jude. And would it be just if I put a gun to your head and the head of your family to force you to pay for my son's health care? Or if I somehow enslaved you and said, you're going to work so that my son can be healed? It's a form of slavery. And so if we want to be free, it means that we show care and love to these people as an act of our will, not the government holding a gun to our head and making us slaves.